Title of his talk, Immanent Transcendence in the Chinese Tradition, Thoughts about a Chinese Controversy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my job is to keep you kind of good-mooded and still in your seat, so while you would rather go to lunch, I try my best. And it's also hard to follow up on Roger, it's a tough job. I can subscribe to most of what you said before. I really agree very much with your position. Still, I will try to show, we'll see, that things might also be seen a little bit different. And this is basically the content of my talk. We have the common Western judgment on Chinese thought that it is purely secular. We have referred to that before, that it's lacking a transcendent dimension. And let me begin my talk with quoting Hegel, the authority of the 19th century, but as you know, Hegel is still an authority today. And what he said about heaven or Tian in Confucian thought and practice. And let me just read that here. It's a long quote, but it's a good starting point. Tian designates the physical power and not the spiritual deity. Tian is the highest, though not only in the spiritual and moral sense. This Tian designates wholly indeterminate and abstract universality. It is the wholly indeterminate sum of the physical and moral nexus as a whole. In this context, it is the emperor and not heaven who is sovereign on earth. It is not heaven that has given or gives the laws of religion and ethical life which human beings respect. It is not Tian that rules nature, for the emperor rules everything. And only he is connected with this Tian. Only he brings offerings to Tian at the four main festivals of the year. It is only the emperor who converses with Tian, who directs his prayers to Tian. He alone stands in connection with Tian, and thus it is the emperor who rules the whole earth. Among us, the prince rules, but God does too. The prince is bound by the divine commandments, but there it is the emperor who has dominion over nature and rules the powers themselves. And that is why all things on earth are the way they are. We distinguish the world or worldly phenomena in such a way that God rules beyond this world too. That is where heaven is, which is perhaps populated by the souls of the dead. The heaven of the Chinese or Tian, by contrast, is something totally empty. So this is Hegel on Tian. Interesting. It's a view which is, of course, completely separated from the scriptures. It's a sociological observations, of course not his own. He sees the imperial order of classical Chinese or pre-modern Chinese society. And he sees the role of the emperor and his offerings to Tian. No consideration, of course also no knowledge of classical Chinese texts, of the classics, so to speak. And thus Hegel comes to this judgment on Chinese philosophy and religion. Quote again on Hegel, Chinese religion cannot be what we call religion. For to us religion means the retirement of the spirit within itself, in contemplating its essential nature and inmost being. No inherent morality is bound up with the Chinese religion. No immanent rationality through which human beings might have internal value or dignity. Instead, everything is external. Everything that is connected with them is a power for them, because in their rationality and morality, they have no power within themselves. Everything which has to do with the spirit is alien to that. A very sharp judgment. Can you understand me, or do I need the mic? It's okay? I will skip what Dale says about Hegel here. So, modern Western interpreters of Confucianism, Roger, you and your co-author David Pohl, I find that resonating a little bit what we had there before with Hegel when you write Tian is a general designation of the phenomenal world as it emerges of its own accord. Tian is wholly immanent, having no existence independent of the calculus of phenomena that constitute. Or, as you write, Tian is the cosmological whole. And François Julien, been mentioned already, for him heaven is the totalization of immanence. It's very French. So let us now look a little bit at the way the Chinese viewed the realm beyond, if I should call it like that, not using the word transcendence. And here we see a stark contrast to Western philosophy, since the Greeks. And the Chinese thought seems to not be concerned so much with discovering the transcendent in quotation marks. Just Zhuangzi as an example, he says, as to what is beyond the six realms, which is heaven, earth, and the four directions, the sage admits its existence but does not theorize. That's the way he talks about it in chapter 2. And also Confucius, the famous Zibu de Arwen. We can hear our master's views on culture and its manifestations, but we cannot hear his views on human nature and the way of heaven. So Confucius did not like to talk about this topic. So we have a development and also a contrast in Confucian thought. Confucius did not talk about the way of heaven, but Mencius did. Mencius very much liked to do that. And we also have the doctrine of the mean, the Zhongyong, that emphasizes this topic. It has its initial and central topic. And for this reason, the Zhongyong and also the Mencius have become or have been regarded as the most metaphysical or religious texts of the Confucian classics. And for that reason, it was also the Song Neo-Confucians that referred to these two texts. For them, the metaphysical dimension of Confucianism became a special focus of their interest, and thus Mencius and Zhongyong were particularly important sources of their thought. Now, let's move on to modernity, to what we call now New Confucianism. There is a famous statement by 4 Confucian scholars in 1958. It's called the Manifesto for a Reappraisal of Sinology and Reconstruction of Chinese Culture. I think Fabian Heubel has done some research on this text. The authors, famous New Confucians, Tang Qunyi, Mo Zongsan, Xu Fuguan, Zhang Junmai. And they first emphasized the religious dimension of Confucianism. And they were also the first who spoke, although implicitly only, of immanent transcendence in the Confucian tradition. And let me quote here a passage from the manifesto. The morality of which Chinese Confucians speak is rooted in their concept of mind and human nature, Xin Qi. But this human nature is the same as the heavenly principle. And this human mind is connected with the heavenly mind. Thus, this mind and this human nature are the heavenly mind and the heavenly principle. This mind and this human nature are the heavenly mind and the heavenly principle. So here you have the implicit talk about immanent transcendence. So as a consequence, we have much discussion about transcendence and immanence, as well as immanent transcendence now among New Confucians, although not in the strict Western philosophical fashion. Mind you, this has been mentioned already that immanence and transcendence are established Western concepts. We have Max Weber, Ernst Bloch, Husserl, and so on, who all have been referring to that. And so we can certainly see that this notion of transcendence among today, new confusion was triggered through the encounter with the West. But it has been kind of filled with new meaning. It's been filled with new content by the Chinese. And you have some modern Chinese cultural critics, they see the moral and political decay of China due to a lack of Christian-like transcendence and Christian notion of sin, such as Transcendence. He sees a certain advantage of having transcendence like the West, because the concept of transcendence allegedly caused all the positive developments that the West has in China not, such as good politics and a legal system. To think about. So there are now new developments, of course. You can say that the new height and new dimension of the controversy has. We have a new height and new dimension of the controversy with Western scholars joining the debate. François Julien, as well as David Pohl and Roger Ames' books, they have been translated to Chinese. I've checked that out. Roger, maybe you can supplement this here. Thinking Through Confucius has already 2 publications in Chinese. I didn't, not sure about Anticipating China, was translated to Chinese as well, wasn't it? And Thinking from the Han appeared already in 1999, 1 year after its English translation. So, as we have heard from William and also from Roger himself, Paul Ames argues strongly that China did not have a notion of transcendence. Also, one should not use terms that are fraught with Western elements. And here, quoting, we want to argue that China has a tradition that is at once non-transcendent and profoundly religious. And they see in China a radical otherness, and China should be understood on its own terms, a position that I fully endorse. And we have similar position held by François Julien. There seems to be now a new dividing line along the question about transcendence. Does Confucianism have religious traits or a religious dimension? And we have people that are for that position, and we have people that are against that position. And the pros, they favor, of course, concepts like transcendence or immanent transcendence, and the cons, they oppose the notion of transcendence. And with the notable exception of Paul and Ames, they do see a religious dimension, but not transcendence, at least not in a strict sense, strict transcendence. Yeah, that's been mentioned already by William. And you also oppose the use of Western terminology. As you see, I keep using terms like heaven and the way and all, and because for just the reason that I see these terms to be rather metaphorical. They are, for me, not philosophical terms in a strict sense, so to speak, but they are metaphors. And I think as metaphors, they are much more meaningful and resonant than when I try to spell them out. So it's just the same as when I translate a Chinese poem. I'd rather use the metaphors that are there and maybe explain the poem, or maybe put footnotes to a poem. I know that's no good, putting footnotes to a poem, but it's still, I think it's better than to write to translate a Chinese poem in a very prosaic fashion, than to use the metaphors there that can resonate with us. And for that reason, I stick to heaven and the way and others too. Now, the question is if it is legitimate, and also if it does make sense to explain Chinese philosophy with terminology derived from Western philosophy and theology, such as transcendence and immanence. You know, since the encounter with the West, Chinese have lost their confidence in talking about their own history of ideas with their traditional terminology. And the result is a hodgepodge, a confusion of views and in the use of terms and ideas. And so there's no strict discussion of terms in Western fashion, and often no strict references to Western concepts. It's all very mingled, we get to that topic at the end of my talk again. The point that I will now try to make in my paper, or the question that I will try to follow up, is the question: why do the Chinese feel a need to discuss their own tradition in a way that Western colleagues tell them they should abstain from? After all, God is dead in the West, and thus transcendence appears to be a dead issue. And Pohl aims to point out the irony that the Chinese should be interested in such outdated terms and concepts. So it's like the Chinese are riding a dead horse. So what's the use of it? My question is, what do the Chinese mean when they use concepts like immanent transcendence? And when I talk about the Chinese, I mean these new Confucians who apparently like to use this metaphor, if I want to put it like that, immanent transcendence, not a term in a strict philosophical sense. And we can ask or begin this investigation by asking if heaven is transcendence. And I will not go through this whole list. William did already talk about that to a certain extent. We have, in a way, the notion of Tian by the Zhou period. We have then Xunzi in the late Zhou, who demystifies Tian. For Xunzi, Tian was just the seasons, seasons, the times, that's nature. And later we have a merging of Confucian and Taoist notions. For example, we have the identification of Tao with Tian when Cheng Yi, the great master for Zhuxi and Neo-Confucianism, when he says heaven is the way. So Tian, Ji Shi Dao. So we have a process of rationalization and demystification regarding heaven. And we have to note, though, that Song dynasty and Ming dynasty Neo-Confucians held on to heaven and the way as central metaphysical elements in their thought. And this is, for me, this is, generally speaking, the interesting part, how Chinese Confucian tradition was reinterpreted by the Neo-Confucians since the Song period. And this is really something else, and it's there you get quite different notions than when you look at original Confucianism. We can say that throughout Chinese history there has been an awareness of an unfathomable power beyond man and greater than man himself. And this was called either Tian or Tao. And in Confucianism, this Tian was seen as the source of human morality. And in Taoism, as the unspeakable mystery of mysteries. Talk in the language of Xuan Zhi Er Xuan, in the Tao, initial chapter of the Tao Te Ching. The way that cannot be spoken of is not the concept. Or ground of being itself, to speak with Pohl, whom I will come back to also. In Neo-Confucianism, these two realms, to a certain extent, fused into each other. It's Confucian and Taoist. As you all know, Neo-Confucianism was kind of a merging of Confucian ethics, Taoist, and Yin-Yang, I Ching, cosmology,